Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you this fine Tuesday?
After avoiding all of the Valentine's stuff everywhere, been a pretty good day. It's just pink and flowers everywhere, which is all right, but it's all good. Before we get into the topics, I want to talk about what we've been playing. Have you been playing anything new or interesting recently?
Yeah, I just finished Callisto Protocol yesterday. And I have to say, after playing through it and really studying it and thinking about it some more, I quite enjoyed my time with it. It was not Dead Space, but it did have some similarities. I can see why it was a spiritual successor, and I can see, obviously Schofield's handprint all over it. There were some overarching themes and some mechanics and kind of aesthetic stuff that was very similar, but it's very much its own thing as well. Like, particularly the combat. I know a lot of people were not fans of the dodging and the melee focus, but I don't know. Something about it was just really kind of just appealing to me. It was different from most of the horror games you play. Like, I dodge left, I dodge right. I feel like I'm in a boxing ring. Then you pump fake and then you just crack down with this shock baton, or you use the various guns you have, and then being able to. I felt like a Jedi being able to use that gauntlet and grab and chuck things into fan blades and all kinds of stuff. And the story was good. It wasn't incredible, but it was good. And the way they end it is obvious that there's going to be more content and hopefully a sequel. So overall, really enjoyed it, and let's see what else have I been. I played some Cube the other day, and then I was about to start. Well, I beat Hi-Fi Rush, loved it, incredible. Finally finished it. Gonna go back and open the secret doors, and then I'm excited to hop into the Dead Space remake now.
Nice. Well, I've recently finished Dead Space Remake. That game is a masterpiece. The game was already brilliant to begin with, and when they announced it was getting a remake, I was against it. I'm against 360 era remakes because I just don't think they need them, really. They look good, they still play good, but Dead Space was literally a dead franchise for over like a decade now. So I understand it was the only way to bring it back. And after playing it, they did such a good job. Like it very much it is the original game, but it has the 360 zero G movement from Dead Space 2. The aiming is more refined. It's literally the same game but better. And honestly, if a remake could win Game of the Year, that would win because it's polished to a T. Like I put it like this, I rant about Frostbite games a lot. And I played this game and didn't have a single bug at all, and it was pretty incredible. They've added a lot of different things to the game. So basically, there was a time when I was walking down a corridor and I forgot an item, and I thought rather than turning around and going back, I'd just reload the save. So I reloaded the save, got the item I needed, and then went back into the corridor. Well, this time the lights went off. And like the xenomorphs or whatever you call them, the necromorphs start bursting out of the walls, because it can just do it dynamically. So when you backtrack through the station, the Ishimura, different things can happen each time. So sometimes you have to go back to like the engineering several times, and it'll play completely different because there's different enemy types coming out of different areas and stuff. And like, I think my biggest problem with the Callisto Protocol wasn't the fact that it kicked my behind severely. The difficulty in that game to me, I don't know if you had a problem with this, Logan, but literally, I put that game on easy, the Callisto Protocol, and I still couldn't beat it, just out of frustration. And they put out like an update today saying, "Oh, we're giving everyone this hardcore mode." It's like, where's me super easy mode so I can finish it? But yet, Dead Space, I finished that like decently on normal, and I think the Callisto Protocol, the problem for me was that in a lot of areas, you'd go and there'd be this wide open space and you'd be attacked by 5 enemies. and then you go to the next space, and there'd be 5 enemies in a smaller space, and then a boss that can kill you in one hit. But in Dead Space, the fear is coming from the suspense. You can spend maybe 20 minutes not encountering an enemy, and it's just like the sound of the pipes bursting or stuff like that. And I don't know. I think what they were trying to do in the Callisto Protocol is well done. And if we're talking about graphics alone, I think the Callisto Protocol is one of the best looking games ever made. That game is phenomenal. It's Unreal Engine 4 at its best, in my opinion. But like Dead Space Remake, like if you're going to Dead Space Remake next, you're really going to enjoy it. All the suits look amazing with all the detail. There's volumetric fog in a lot of the environments, so like sometimes you're going through a zero-G area and you can't see anything due to the fog, and the fog moves when you move items through it. Really well done, really well done, and I highly recommend people play the Dead Space Remake. It's doing really well, apparently. Apparently the secret ending you get in New Game Plus hints at the sequel, and considering Dead Space 2 is one of my favourite games of all time, I hope we get it. I think we will. People are willing to buy single player games of the quality, and that is definitely quality. Another game I've been playing, which I was going to talk about later in the show, is Hogwarts Legacy. That is one of the best RPGs I've ever played. And it's so simple. It's like Fable mixed with Dragon Age in a weird way, and it just works. It's a very good game, and that came out recently with all the controversy and all that stuff. And all that aside, like, the game's fantastic. It really is. The combat in the videos up until launch, people were saying it looked boring. Even me, I was a little bit concerned about what combat would be like in a game where you spend, let's say, half of the time in combat. The combat is the best part. It's just you can't really tell from videos. You can chain together different moves and different spells and different kinds of spells. Like, basically spells interact with each other in different ways, so you can do different combos. But like as an RPG, as a simple single player RPG, it's amazing. You're seeing across the board, it's getting amazing review scores, and thankfully, most of the gaming industry, they've had the cojones to come out and actually review the game as it is, which is great. Although you have Wired.com that gave it a 1 out of 10 by someone that clearly didn't play it. Like, I'm guessing you saw that, Logan.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've played some pretty just downright garbage and trash games in my lifetime, and I don't think I would ever give a game a 1. So, games have to have at least some redeeming value.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are some review outlets that said they're still gonna like come out with review scores and stuff, but like, controversy aside, amazing game. I think if people want an RPG that's very chill, you can just fly around, do quests. There's 100 side quests in the game. The pacing of the game is fantastic. Obviously, it has a Metroidvania style element to it, so certain spells let you interact with things in the environment, meaning that you can't access certain areas and caves and whatever until later on in the game. But it just works. It works. And here's the thing, it's outselling Elden Ring in the UK. Now, we will be talking about boxed copies later in the show and what that means, but like when it comes to on-track numbers against Elden Ring, it's doing really well, because we haven't had a Harry Potter game in about a decade. Outside of Lego games, we haven't had a Harry Potter game since, I think, 2011. Deathly Hallows Part 2 on the 360, and that wasn't a good game. It was not. It was bad. But it's good to see. Like, I'll put it like this. We just, in the second month of the year, and we already have things like Hi-Fi Rush, which people are saying is Game of the Year. We have Dead Space Remake, which is, in my opinion, it would be Game of the Year if it wasn't a remake. And then we have Hogwarts Legacy, which is incredible. Like, honestly, so far, it might be my Game of the Year. It might change throughout the year with things like Star Wars and Starfield and stuff, but like, it's incredible. Like, Logan, what do you think of like all the stuff you've seen on it? Does it interest you at all?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Harry Potter guy in the world, but it is a game that's on my radar, and I think I will pick up. And honestly, I I don't know, it might be kind of the reverse effect or something, but like all the people just harassing folks over it and everything has made me almost want to buy it more. Has been like, you know what? Stick it to these folks that are trying to harass people who just want to enjoy their little wizard adventure. Like it's not my favorite franchise, but I'm interested. I'll check it out. I'll pick it up eventually. I'm totally cool with the people who don't want to buy it because they feel that they have a personal or whatever feeling about it to where I'm cool with that. I totally respect that. I'll be honest, there are games out there that do really really well and are big time franchises I personally don't touch because I have issues with them in various reasons. But so I totally get it if someone doesn't want to play it and they go, you know what, this is not for me. I totally respect that and stick by your guns. But for the people who are harassing and bullying others for wanting to enjoy something, yeah, I'm not digging that. And so I also want to support the devs. So I'll probably pick it up, even though it's not my number one trending game for right now. But I'll pick it up. As for game of the year so far, I mean, Hi-Fi Rush is incredible. It's one of the best action games I've ever played. It's one of the most just purely fun and cathartic and happy experiences I've played. Like I felt like I was like 10 years old watching, Warner Brothers, Saturday morning cartoons and stuff again. It just something about it was just awesome and just hit all the right spots. I agree with you. I think Dead Space Remake is going to be one of those that's just pristine, incredible, and is a game of the year worthy game. Whether you want to include it or not because it's a remake, I personally probably wouldn't include it just as a stickler. It is that good. And I'm excited for it, and shouts out to Nintendo for finally dropping our Metroid Prime Remastered. Been waiting for that since the Switch. So good on them for that.
Yeah, the Metroid. I know that's a Nintendo thing, but that was huge news. Like finally getting the Metroid Prime remaster out there, and it turns out it's actually really good. From what I've seen, they've done a lot of work to that. I love how shadow drops, like for big games, all of a sudden a thing. Hi-Fi Rush by Microsoft, and then you have Metroid Prime. Like people have been waiting for Metroid Prime, anything Metroid Prime related, for years now. Like to think that Metroid Prime 4 was actually announced in, I think it was like 2017, and they announced it with a JPEG. But I mean, it looks like they finally got things moving. But yeah, the Hogwarts Legacy thing. I think the best thing about that game is that it's clearly aimed at a lot of people that have no idea what the franchise is about, or if they're fans, because like they explain everything. What every spell is explained. It's set 100 years before the first Harry Potter film, and it's just so well done. Like it's a very chill RPG. It has a ton of like different accessibility options. Like you can make this game as hard or as easy as you want. And I don't know, it's just so well done. And as for the controversy and people like bullying others online because of like wanting to play it, like I've had this. Like every time I post about it, I've avoided using hashtags for the past few days because they are clearly going to hashtag posts of Hogwarts Legacy and putting spoilers out there. So I highly recommend people just maybe not use hashtags for this game, because literally every single post I make with Hogwarts Legacy in the title, with a hashtag, they post in the spoilers. And that's not that I just don't get that. Here's the thing, right? A little bit of rant. How is announcing that you are boycotting a game that you had no intention of buying to begin with do anything? Because these people weren't going to buy it anyway, and from when I look at a lot of these people's posts, they don't play video games, so they're going to boycott a video game they weren't going to buy. That does nothing. And we're seeing the exact same right now up until the launch of Atomic Heart, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's just, no matter what happens, people want to buy these games and they're just going to get bullied online for it. And I think that's stupid. Like, why can't these people put all of that energy online, pull together their resources, and, I don't know, maybe raise some money for a charity? Why can't they do that? But no, they have to bully people for playing the game, enjoying it. Like, this is a game made by hundreds of people with very different opinions. But if you play the game, it makes you a bad person. But if you are one of these people online that's bullying others online, like some of the things people are being told is pretty disgusting, right? And
downright vile, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, it's uncalled for, and it's like, so that's okay, but playing a video game makes you a bad person. Like, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. You know, I kind of have to like censor what we say on here because, you know, YouTube doesn't like certain like things being said, but like, I think it's appalling that a person can just go on Twitter and post what game they're playing, they saying they're enjoying Hogwarts Legacy, and they are getting told to off themselves. Like, that's ridiculous. And that's where we are now in society. Like, that's okay. It's terrible. So I highly recommend, like, I recommend people buy it because it's a great game so far. You know, put out my preview last week. If people want to watch that, I'll post the link in the description down below afterwards. But, like, it's an incredible game. You know, you can make it easy or as difficult as you want. It's a massive open world game. You know, the flying, I highly recommend people do this because a lot of people have been complaining about the flying mechanic. If you invert the controls, it switches the stick. So, like, default controls, you actually fly left or right on the right stick, which is counterintuitive if you play shooters or any other flying game. But if you invert the controls in the settings, you move left or right with the left stick, which feels more natural. So I highly recommend people do that. There's tons of little options you can change to make the game feel good. It's just so good. It's so good. I just don't understand why this game's getting targeted so much, because here's the thing. Harry Potter is a worldwide franchise that sells year-round on all sorts of products. For instance, my local supermarket, they get this massive stack of advent calendars every year, Harry Potter advent calendars, and they sell out instantly. Every time I go in Tesco towards Christmas, this massive pallet of just these, you know, chocolate Harry Potter advent calendars go out of stock, and it's like, those probably make as much money as this game, you know, and it just seems like they're all targeting this one particular game. They're not targeting the pencil case makers or the mobile phone case makers, or, you know, the colouring books. So if someone gives their kid a colouring book that's Harry Potter related, does that make them a bad person all of a sudden? It's ridiculous. You know, you have baby toys, you have the action figures, you have pretty much hats, clothing, everything Harry Potter related, everything. Like, you can see cars go down the street with some sort of sticker on it inside the window that's Harry Potter related, but they're just targeting this one particular game. Why? It's because they can do it from their arses at home, get out the Twitter thumbs, and be an activist online where it's not doing anything. But why can't they just go out and raise money for charity? Why can't they do that? Put that energy there. But no, they're attacking the Wizard game, which they are afraid to call online, by the way, by its name. Which is so ironic, because in the Harry Potter universe, you're not meant to say Voldemort's name. So, yeah, they are scared of saying a game's title. But I have to say, the ones being awful online, they are horrible. They aren't welcome in the gaming community, in my opinion. And they just need to leave online communities altogether. Being a nasty person online and being a bully online is unwelcome, in my opinion. Anyway, we'll move on from that. But yeah, Hogwarts Legacy, awesome game. It's going to be one of the best-selling games of the year. You know, we'll move into another RPG. Actually, you know, we'll talk about Atomic Heart, because this game has got people's eyes on.
One more fire to jump into. Yeah. Let's go.
And you know, like when the whole Harry Potter thing was like kicking off and everyone online was like losing their minds, I didn't actually think about Atomic Heart, because I've been looking forward to that game since, like, I was like the first person on the internet that bloody heard about that game, because it was vaguely mentioned on Twitter by the developer, and at the time they had like less than 100 followers. I've been looking forward to this game since like 2017 or 2018. And it's came a long way. It's looked better at every single showing. And, you know, this is a Russian developer. They are, and they said they basically play no part in the politics of everything. And that's cool, right? Not everyone in Russia is a bad person. Not everyone in Russia is a member of the USSR. There are good people over there. And, you know, as the game's getting towards its release next week, the game looks even better and better and better. We have a live action trailer that went live today with Jensen Ackles from Supernatural, or recently The Boys season 3, and a cool trailer. It actually pokes fun at Hogwarts Legacy in a fun way. Because they're just completely two different styles of games. One's a violent game where you destroy robots in a abandoned alternate universe Soviet Union facility, and the other one is a wizard and skull game. Two different ends of the spectrum. But I'm seeing now that people are talking about the game using the hashtag with screenshots, clips, gifs, and stuff. They are getting attacked now. And you've had, Mick Gordon come out and say that he's donating all the money to, a Ukraine charity and stuff. And, that's awesome. That is awesome. I think, what a lot of people are donating money in that. And the hate mobs coming out about this game. And it's just, I'm rolling my eyes. It's like, it's doing nothing. Fun. Why not raise money, take that energy and raise money for the Ukraine? But no, it's the hating online thing. And it's like, I'm thinking if Hogwarts Legacy never released, this game would be getting all of the blowback. And I'm just thinking, what's the next game people are trying to get cancelled? like Hogwarts Legacy is out. Atomic Heart is out next week. So when's the next game that's going to be cancelled? Are we going to cancel, Dead Island 2 because the zombies? Are we going to cancel Star Wars in April because, I don't know, you can kill stormtroopers? Logan, what do you think? Because I've noticed it today specifically, the mob are attacking that game.
It's such a cluster. I mean, I even kind of just made a point about it the other day that I think Twitter has been, one of the best things and one of the absolute worst things for just discussion of everything in general, but gaming in particular. You just get these, hypercharged communities, which can be a great thing or really, really bad, depending on how it goes. And it seems like it's really mobilized the efforts of these groups that are just so angry and wanting to just attack and destroy everything and just go after people. They're minding their own business, just wanting to play a game on their Saturday evening that they hey, it has cool robots in it, and there's cool electricity, it's retro, futuristic, dystopian, history, whatever, game that looks very Bioshock-like. That sounds awesome. Instead of focusing on that, they're like, okay, well, where did the studio technically originate from? Oh, it originated from there. And guess what? This country is involved in things that are going on in the world right now. And then people make a big deal out of it. But, it's... On one hand, you understand people, like I said earlier, if people have a strong opinion or views on something personally, I get that. And I respect that. I just don't like it when they harass other people for doing something that's not bothering them personally, or that is just like buying a game. Like if someone feels it's okay for them and they buy it, and someone else doesn't feel it's okay for them, they just don't buy it. You go your separate ways. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's gotten too turbocharged, and then people go after them for not making stronger statements of renouncing things or going against things or whatever. And it's just these are just devs who work on a game. They're the things going on in the world are not under their control. So I don't know. I think it's another misplaced thing. People mad at somebody who created a fictional universe are mad at the people working on a game associated with that IP that aren't the said thing. You know what I mean? It's misplaced anger, and then the anger and the vitriol is spread out to people who just want to play a stupid game because they like games, and it's dumb. And there will inevitably be another game that everybody wants to cancel for some reason, whether it's they are into this sort of music, or I mean, it could be all kinds of stupid stuff at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if people follow me on Twitter, I do not touch politics or anything like that with a a 100-foot barge pole. I keep myself into gaming. I might post about what film I'm watching, or I might post a picture of my pint if I'm at the pub. But outside of that, I do not touch that stuff. And a lot of people feel the same way, because what's the point? Like it always, when people mention this stuff online, it always leads to arguing. And people just want to, have a video game that's good. But let's face it, right? In the gaming space, we've had years of delays across the board on all platforms, right? And people just want some quality titles. And we finally have quality third-party titles that are coming out. We got Elden Ring last year. It sold 12 million copies in 2 weeks. Why? Because it's just a simple game. You fight monster. That's it. That's all you do throughout the game. You fight monster and explore. And that's what they showed in the advert, in the trailers last year. You're fighting monsters and you're running around on your horse goat thing. Right? That's literally all you do in the game. And it's amazing. And it sold well. And, we have things like, Dead Space doing well. We have Hogwarts Legacy, because it's a very simple RPG. Again, it's Fable. It's essentially Fable with, Dragon Age mixed in. And it's simple, but it works. And, we have this game coming out next week, which is basically Soviet facility Bioshock. I'm sorry, but that sounds like an instant buy for me, right? As soon as a game is labeled by people that, it looks like Bioshock, that makes me want to buy the game. I'm not going to lie. Like, there's been a ton of games where I see, it looks like Bioshock, and I buy it. I got Prey back in the day just off the fact that I thought it looked like Bioshock, and I was not disappointed. But the hate mob online, I can't stand it. And, after Atomic Heart comes out, we're going to see the people online trying to spoil the game and do all that stuff again. And, they'll move on to something else. Who knows? Maybe it won't be a game, and they'll just try and cancel something else. I don't really get the whole cancelling of video games thing. These are made by hundreds of people. Like Hogwarts Legacy, for instance, I think that was made by like 200 people. Like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, hopefully Atomic Heart releases next week, and everyone can enjoy it without an arseass, spoiling the game. Anyway, we'll move on. So there's this game announced for Game Pass. Low-key announcement. Microsoft didn't actually put out an official post for this for some reason. But it's coming to Game Pass this summer, and it's called Sword and Fairy 7. It's a single-player RPG, and it's made by a Chinese developer. And it came out about a month ago or so. Might have been in December. And apparently it's pretty good. But it's coming to Game Pass in the summer, which is it's a weird way for a game to release, in my opinion. Because normally we have either games that launch in Game Pass or come to Game Pass like 6 months or a year after release. Well, this was announced to come to Game Pass this summer, even though the game released a month ago. So, yeah, bit of a stealth announcement. But from what I've seen, it's a gorgeous looking RPG. Have you seen anything in this, Logan? Because it was literally like the lowest key announcement ever.
Yeah, I actually bought it a month ago. It's in my backlog. I wanted to support, more developers that aren't traditionally on Xbox coming to the platform. And instead of a JRPG, I think it's another Asian RPG, but with a different flair. And there's a lot of mythology and a mysticism and just vibrant colors and RPG gameplay. It looks really fun and cool. And I had heard good things about the series, so I picked it up. And lo and behold, it comes to Game Pass a month later. But yeah, it was kind of weird they stealth dropped it at the Taipei game show, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad more people will get a chance to play it, and hopefully they like it and they bring more content to the platform.
Yeah, I mean, funny thing is, just before the Game Pass announcement, I put it into my wish list, because I do that with just a bunch of games I want to memorize and get down the line. And yeah, I might buy it anyway. It looks pretty cool. I don't know if it's got English voice acting or not. I know some bigger games have had that, but yeah, it looks cool. I highly recommend people check it out. It's been out for like a month. There's plenty of gameplay out there. Gorgeous looking game, by the way. Ancient Chinese mythology, always beautiful stuff. Another bit of gaming news. Dead Island 2. They had a random announcement yesterday that they said they go on gold, but they announced that they're coming out 7 days early. So the game releases on the 21st of April. You know, this game was announced in 2013, and then we saw nothing, absolutely nothing on the game until Gamescom 2022. And they basically, they said it was coming out in February, then delayed it a few times. But yeah, it comes out in April, and honestly, from what I've seen so far, the game looks amazing. They've clearly delayed it to move out the way from Star Wars.
Smart.
And honestly, it's the right move. Like, I will get both, but if I had to choose between the two, I'm going Star Wars every single time.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think they're going to release a good game. They've obviously delayed it just to like polish it and make the gameplay better and stuff. It switched developers a few times, but like everything they've shown so far, I can't complain. It looks pretty good. And to have that 7 days release early before Star Wars, I think that's right, because a game like that you're probably going to be able to finish in 7 days, because it's not as big as Dying Light, where you're going to spend like 50 hours just doing parkour across tall buildings. But yeah, I think people are going to enjoy that. We're half an hour into the show. If people are enjoying, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel out. Super chats are live if you want to do all that stuff. Anyway, yeah, we'll move on. Okay. So we're going to talk about this later in the show, but we'll get it over and done with now. So Redfall releases in the 2nd of May. I'm looking forward to it. It looks like it's going to be Microsoft's foray into having their version of a Far Cry type game, which in my opinion is really good. They need an open world game like that, and as someone that loves Far Cry, I'm all for it, especially in an open world with vampires. I'm there. It's going to be 1 to 4 player co-op, really cool. You can pick different classes, and you have ability trees that you can select from, all that stuff. It looks great. There's a problem. And while it won't affect me, because I don't play games offline, you can't play the game offline. Now, people have a big problem with this because it's technically a single-player game. So why do you need to be connected to the internet? Now, in their defense, maybe it has something to do with cloud. Maybe they have cloud processing in part of the single-player. We've had games like that in the past. I think Halo 5 did some processing for co-op AI or something like that. I think Gears 5 may have done some as well. But, like, basically, you cannot play it offline. And I know, Logan, you don't like the whole offline play, online-only play type thing. So what's your thought, man? Because, like, people are all over the place with this.
I mean, I'll be honest. I think it's bull that they're pulling that, but I mean, on one hand, I get it. There are games like Destiny and stuff that have to have an online connection, or if you're playing like an MMO or something like that. But play just a single player experience that you're not playing with other people. Like if you're just wanting to play, solo, you should be able to play it offline. I mean, it shouldn't be that big a deal to make it work. And yes, I play online connected because, I have good internet, yada, yada, yada. It's not an issue for me. But I know of people who don't have the best internet in the world, and that could be a problem for them. Or, frankly, in the future, there is always the potential that if they could, basically sunset Redfall to where then you can't play it if it's only online or not, and they shut down servers and you want to play solo, then you're a fish out of water if they do that. I'm not saying it will. I think it's going to be successful. I don't think it's going to be Evolve 2 or anything like that, but that is something you have to keep in the back of your mind, because the idea of having a cool game that you bought and you play and you really enjoy and not being able to play it again just because they flip a switch and say, "Nah, your fun's over," and then that's just not cool to me. Especially for a game of this kind, surely they can put a fix or a mode or a limiter or something in there to where that'll make it where you can play offline by yourself if you need to. If it's about, progression or people hacking and cheating, carryover stuff, maybe they can find a workaround. I know there was a recent game that got sunsetted the other day and the devs said they were working on a offline patch to make it to where you could still play it because they wanted their community to continue even after they've sunset services. So hopefully Arcane hears a hubbub about it and fixes it. As far as that, aside from that, I'm thrilled with the game. Looks awesome, right up my alley. And I personally can't wait for it, but I do think that's a little hogwash what they're pulling with that. And I think they're better than that. Arcane's a great studio, and they can fix that. Do better.
Yeah. I mean, from everything that's shown in the game so far, it looks like something I love to play. Like, I know I complain about big open world games a lot because I don't think everything needs to be open world, but like, to me, it just looks like a Far Cry game, and I find Far Cry games extremely fun. And personally, I don't play video games offline. You know, if you play it offline on an Xbox One or an Xbox Series X or S, your achievements don't pop. So I'm always like, nah, I'm good. I'll play something else. I'll fire up the 360 because those still work. But yeah, I mean, it is something they can fix. You know, maybe it's a bit difficult because it's a loot style game, and then it tracks things like that. That could be an issue. But all in all, I think the game's going to be fine. And like you're saying about the whole sunsetting scenario, I think the main reason people had that concern is because the whole announcement of Redfall being online only came out about the same time as a bunch of other games were announced to be taken, offline for good. And I'll go through the list right now. So basically, Redfall was announced that it's going to be online only. Literally around the same time, all these games were announced to end, live service soon. So we have Apex Legends Mobile, Battlefield Mobile, Crime Site, Crossfire X, Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai, a Hero of Bonds. Okay, Echo VR. A lot of people are angry about that one, by the way. Knockout City, Love Live School Idol Festival, Rumbleverse. And all those are going offline where you can't play the content. And like even Crossfire X, right? You can't play the campaigns, the single player campaigns, which are installed to your hard drive, when they end the multiplayer component. Like that's the most egregious one out of that list. Like you can literally go onto the store right now and download the game and play the campaign. You can only play campaign 1 because they've delisted campaign 2 already. And yeah, that is probably the worst way to end a game, in my opinion. Crossfire X, and by the way, do you know when they released that game? It had some hype because the trailers looked really cool, the graphics are good. That game, the campaign, had no achievements. All achievements were dedicated to the multiplayer. The studio that made the multiplayer basically allocated all the achievements to the component they made. So when Remedy came out and with their campaign, which is integrated into the game itself, yeah, you don't get any achievements for Crossfire X campaign, which was terrible. Nobody played it because of that. Like, even me, I was looking forward to that campaign, but no achievements for a campaign? Really? Is this a clown show? A circus? I'm not having it. And yeah, bad way to go. And the thing that stings for me is Battlefield Mobile. That's essentially Battlefield 3. My favorite Battlefield, but for mobile, and the ending that, and it's like, that stings. They could have brought that to console. But yeah, I think it's a weird time because you have all these live service games ending, and then the Redfall thing came out. So that was just poor timing. Microsoft has had poor timing in the past when it comes to these things, but I mean, it can't be helped. Again, like you're saying, they could patch it. And, when it comes to all these live service games ending, I'm going to ask you, Logan, are you actually surprised that these live service games are ending?
No, I'm not, because I think a lot of people have been frankly tired of it, and they get burnt out on these things. They turn some of these games into like a second job just to keep up with everything, and you're just grinding for this loot or that, or oh, just so I can get a pink hat for my character, or a some cat ears, or a pizza, colored gun, or just all kinds of just random stuff. It's just and they've kind of felt like soulless husks, honestly, like a bunch of these games. And I know, back in my day, hashtag, old man yells at cloud, whatever, but it just, I miss the dedicated expansions and good premium content you could pay for and add to a game. Or, lo and behold, launch a game when it's actually fully complete and ready to go instead of parceled out. Like, I'm relieved this era seems to be transitioning.
Yeah, I mean, for the online model's been changing for a while because you're having the 360 generation where Gears of War came out and it was massive. That's all people were playing. Gears of War multiplayer and then, Gears 2 Horde. Like, people loved it. So all these different game makers start adding these tacked on multiplayer modes to their games. So Dead Space 2 had PvP. Left 4 Dead had PvP, although that was pretty popular for a while. Tomb Raider had PvP. Didn't Bioshock 2 have PvP?
I think in some facet, yeah.
Yeah, and just a bunch of games had this like tacked on multiplayer mode. Then you had like the shining beacon of hope, which was Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, one of the best things to ever be made. It's up there with Strongbow and Xbox and alcohol. Amazing, right? And all these multiplayer modes just died, really. And then the mobile market just took off, right? These tap games where you basically, match 3 duels, you buy microtransactions to get time skips and, level XP stuff. And then all these developers and publishers looked at the mobile market and said, we need that. We need that on console. And throughout the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, we got that by the crap load. Every game had season passes, microtransactions, annoying the hell out of you. Here's the thing, a lot of these games have extremely complicated UIs, but guess what's not complicated? How to buy the microtransactions. That's always the most simplistic, most beautifully laid out thing of these menus, is not how you play the game, not what happens in the story, it's the microtransaction purchases. And it's been going on for years, and I think people are finally getting sick of it, because if you aren't Fortnite, if you aren't Warzone, or, the big boys, the Halo, the Battlefield, although Battlefield kind of screwed itself, if you're not the big ones, the rest are just going to fail. The Destiny and the Division, I think they hold the market for that style of game. I don't think we're going to see any other game like that by other developers, because nobody has time for them. The Destiny players aren't going to buy another game where they do the same thing but with different characters. The Division players aren't going to do the same. So where do they start putting the money towards? Single player games. EA are putting a lot of money into single player titles. You have Focus Interactive, which is going to be a lot of people's favorite publisher at the end of this generation. They are focusing on single player titles. THQ Nordic, they've said many times, they are focusing on single player. And then you have the outlier like Ubisoft simply going to focus on live service titles, and we're like, just give us single player. That's all we want. Give us single player titles. If I were to post a picture of my game shelf, there's a lot of Ubisoft titles. A lot. Because I love a lot of Ubisoft titles. But do you know what I don't have on my shelf? Live service Ubisoft titles. I don't have them. I have no interest. I'm good. And you
don't want a Sam Fisher skin?
Oh my god! Like every single time we have a Ubisoft event, right? And by the way, Splinter Cell is one of my favorite franchises. I love Splinter Cell, and every single time there's a Ubisoft showcase, I just know that one more thing isn't going to be a new Splinter Cell game. It's going to be a skin. It's going to be a skin in a mobile game that's live for 5 months, and then they pull it. And then it just makes me saltier as a Splinter Cell fan, because ever since Ghost Recon Wildlands, we got that Splinter Cell mission where literally Sam Fisher says, oh, then it's just me, in the stealth space. We haven't had a Splinter Cell since. What the hell? What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to put my stealth energy? Bloody nowhere. Honestly, I could rant about that for an hour, but I want a new Splinter Cell game. If Ubisoft announced 10 single-player games tomorrow, chances are I'll buy all 10. But when it comes to live service titles, no. I don't need it. People don't want it. Nobody has time for that. Again, we've just had 10 live service games announced the ending this month. And it's a shame because, you know, a lot of these games, like, we lose content. Like, again, Crossfire X campaign, you aren't going to be able to play that outside of nefarious ways of getting games. But yeah, it's just a shame. Like, I'd be interested, just anyone in chat, do you really like all these live service games? Like, do people really want another live service game announced tomorrow? Because EA has been announcing single player games. They announced that Iron Man is a single player action adventure game. You know, Dead Space, obviously single player. And by the way, a little bit of a rant. Remember Dead Space 3, how they put microtransactions in that game? That was the most egregious thing ever. Or you can have this little robot that goes around gathering around resources, but you can buy the resources if you want. Like, oh, okay, sure I can, sure I can. Like, oh, have you got a time saver there as well for me? Like, I don't like it, you know. And you have a bunch of game publishers right now that when they come out with a single player game, they asked microtransactions and they outright say no. You know, Hogwarts Legacy has no microtransactions. Hi-Fi Rush, no microtransactions. Dead Space, no microtransactions. Same all over the place now. It's just like nobody has time for it. And we're going to see a bunch of live service games announced at E3 or whatever they call it this year. And it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. We're just going to see games end. Like, you know when Battlefield 2042 was failing and doing really bad numbers? And then people at EA came out and said that. And by the way, I've been praising EA. They aren't perfect. They're still messing up. But, like, they announced that, oh, we're going to make another live service Battlefield game in the vein of Overwatch. Like, literally, no one on Earth asked for that. 8 billion people on Earth. Nobody asked for that. Battlefield Overwatch. No, I don't need that. I'll use the game disc as a coaster. That's the most use I'll get out of it. But I don't know, man. Like, Logan, like, the whole live service games thing, there's clearly an end coming, right? Because outside of the big boys, you know, your Halo, your COD, your Destiny, your Division, they're kind of done, right?
Yeah, and good riddance, honestly. I'm ready for this era to pass and to move into either revisiting some older ideas or exploring new things. But the whole milking the cow dry of live services and, you know, yada yada, this and that has grown very thin. People are tired of it. I mean, not to start a whole nother Halo rant or, you know, section, but look at Halo Infinite, for example. People, they were determined and wanted to make Halo into a live service type game to compete with, you know, all these big games that are going out and making bukus of money in that genre. But it's clear that Halo is just not a live service type experience or game. It's just the fans, the hardcore people grown up with it are used to it. It's just not adapting well to it. And honestly, it would be good for its future to transition away from live service and maybe scale back and go more towards how they used to do things. Like, not everything fits in live service. Some do, and they make bukus of money, and the company is very, very happy, and they have this experience forever and ever. But a bunch of other games go in there, and they fall flat on their face, irritate fans, and it damages IPs and communities and everything. And thankfully, it seems like they're finally getting it. After enough failures, they're finally getting it.
Yeah, I mean, some big games going through the live service thing are suffering it right now. Like Ubisoft titles, right? Like I was saying, I love Ubisoft titles, but like the live service elements in Assassin's Creed, it just feels a bit forced, you know? Like, nobody really asked for that. And I think, like, you know, people were worried about Redfall and the whole, like, I should say, you know, ending of service thing. Like, we have live service games that have been around for a decade. You know, Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, one of the best things ever made, is still around. You can play it. It's perfectly well done. And by the way, if any game publishers are listening, or if EA is listening, bring it back. Bring back Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. That game, I don't know if you played it, Logan, but that multiplayer had the best monetization system of any multiplayer game. The maps were free, and basically in the game you could pay for characters or heavy weapon ammo, right? But you unlocked it with in-game currency. So you could either buy a crate with in-game currency, which was easy to get, or with real cash. Literally no one complained. I was on the BioWare forums back in the day. No one ever mentioned or whined about, microtransactions because it was so well done. You could get literally every item in the game just by playing it. It was beautiful. Did you ever play that, Logan? Mass Effect 3 multiplayer?
I never played the multiplayer on those or the Dragon Age series. Just single player for me on those.
Man, I don't want to get all reminiscent, but it was really one of the best things ever made. It was basically Horde. There was 11 waves, and some waves had objectives. As simple as that. One of the best things ever made. I hope a year bring it back. I could cry about that game. Anyway, we'll move on. We've got the big topics later, but we'll get the Activision stuff out now. I get it. It's been a year now. We all thought it would have been over and done with by now. Logan, tell me what's been happening with the whole Activision Blizzard deal, because it seems like things are heating up and maybe getting to a close soon.
Yeah, so even today there's been quite a bombshell of drama going on in the FTC. One of the commissioners on the panel that was involved in, voting to proceed against Microsoft's deal, she resigned today, and she wrote a absolutely scathing piece, op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And she name drops the Lena Khan, the chair of the FTC. It goes after her and basically questions integrity and all kinds of saying this, we're not doing due process, we're not abiding by law, a whole bunch of stuff to make it sheesh, there is some big divide going on there. So there's all that drama happening in the Wall Street Journal piece. If you want to read it, it's out there. I think it's called the article's "Why I Resigned from the FTC" or something like that. So that's happening, and then across the pond in y'all's neck of the woods, in the UK, the CMA they're waiting for Microsoft to respond, along with Activision, to their concerns that they listed out in their objections. They had a 247-page document that they released that basically said, okay, here are our provisional thoughts about this deal and what could or could not be a problem with it. And basically, they did have some concerns, and their concerns were about Call of Duty, which... Why everyone is obsessed with this one IP as the focal point for the entire gaming industry, I don't know. But that's what they're really focused on, that and cloud. And they had a few possible solutions that they put out there. They're like, hey, there are ways to work with this. Here are some of our suggestions. They suggested option 1 is just Xbox and Microsoft just sells off Call of Duty. Everything associated with Call of Duty. Just buy. Just they complete the merger acquisition, and then they divest Call of Duty and its associated stuff. Whether that would be just the IP or the studios that fully make it, or what exactly that would entail, I do not know. But Call of Duty business, that would be gonzo in one scenario.
Not happening.
Then another proposed solution was divesting all of Activision. So not only Call of Duty. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Would be divesting all of Activision. So all the studios, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, everything gone. And then another solution they offered was, okay, you know what? We didn't really have a problem with Blizzard, but if you want to get rid of Blizzard too and just get rid of Activision Blizzard, then that's a possible solution. So they had no issues with King at all. And then Blizzard, they really didn't have issues with, but they're like, well, if you just want to keep Activision Blizzard tied together, then that works too to get rid of it all. And then, but in fine print towards a later part of their document, they said, while we traditionally have not engaged in behavioral remedies for mergers and acquisition type things, we are open to it in this particular case, and we invite Microsoft and Activision to propose remedies. And we are aware of the 10-year contract ideas for Sony and Nintendo and Valve regarding Call of Duty and licensing and stuff. So they're aware of that, but that, from my understanding, was not part of their decision making at this time. That was announced during their evaluation. They kept it separate. So, in meeting with them going forward, they can bring that up and other possible solutions. But now they have until February 22nd to show them the Call of Duty stuff, whatever possible remedies they can come up with. If they can do behavioral, that's obviously preferred. But if behavioral doesn't work, then they have some hard decisions to make. Either we somehow get rid of Call of Duty, we get rid of Activision, we get rid of Activision Blizzard, or we walk away in the UK. Because the UK, for some reason, is structured differently than how the EU does it and how the US does it, to where CMA is like the judge, jury, and executioner, period, for this type of thing. Like, if you say, you know what, we got absolutely hosed on this call, we want to appeal this to a governing body, it's like, well, good luck. You just appeal to the CMA themselves again, but just different. So it basically, this all hinges on the CMA. And then EU seems way more receptive, and they have a private meeting with Microsoft and the parties affected by this deal on the 21st. That will be a private hearing, and after that they can propose remedies if need be and get the ball rolling if they can, and if they can't, then it will go court or other ways. But that's all going on. Then a final thing from the CMA would be due in April if the remedies or whatever are not approved or whatever. And then, FTC is just lingering. If they get it approved in other places, FTC is going to look mighty foolish if they don't just fall in line. But it could still go to court with the FTC if even though, I mean, they're clearly focused on making this a deal. So this thing could drag on with the FTC, but if the other ones approve it, then you would think they would fall in line. But shaping up, end of February, going to be really, really spicy. And we should have a pretty good idea heading into March where this deal is. Yay, nay, or this is going to drag. So, yay.
This is never-ending story, man. We just need a white dog dragon thing. The thing is, I think if it doesn't go through, it would be the worst thing in the universe for Sony, because let's say Microsoft's deal ends, or I should say Sony's marketing deal ends with Call of Duty in, I think it's 2025. Microsoft could technically, if they don't buy them, what's to stop Microsoft from making an exclusivity deal on games? Because it's not written in stone. Like, it's like Microsoft buying Activision is the big thing. That's like getting the FTC involved and pretty much everyone involved. Well, what's to stop Microsoft going scorched earth, right? Because they want Activision for the whole thing. They want the developers, the studios, the technology, the IP, the games. They want it all. Well, who's to say Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer, the Mr. Nice Guys, which it's commendable. I think they get my respect. But like, what if they go scorched earth and decide to do what Sony's been doing, exclusivity deals on major third-party titles? Because remember, the whole BioShock being exclusive to PlayStation, that's been a rumor for about a year and a half now. Like, do you know what the reaction's going to be like online if that's confirmed? It's going to be pretty big, and people ask why Microsoft isn't doing this. And I have seen people bring up the fact that Microsoft should be better and not do these deals. The problem with that sentiment is that by Microsoft not getting those deals, they don't get those games at all. So, like, the I call it the scorched earth scenario. And, like, they could make exclusivity deals with, Activision for Call of Duty. Because when the marketing deal's up, who's to say Microsoft doesn't go get a month of, map packs? Although map packs aren't really a thing now, but you know what I mean. It's going to be a weird place. And people have brought up and freaked out when I mentioned the scorched earth scenario, saying, like, what's stopping Microsoft from making Call of Duty exclusive if the deal goes through? And it's like, contracts. They've literally said they'll keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years. And they'll also bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms, which is a big deal, by the way, considering there's like 120 million Switches out in the wild. And, they're going to announce the Switch 2 at some point. But, like, I think Sony's kind of like, they are concerned, because if Sony did, let's say, put Call of Duty in their streaming service, they are worried about making less money. They're worried that Microsoft's going to make more money from copies. And, like, look at the power of Call of Duty, right? When Call of Duty marketing switched to PlayStation with, I think it was Advanced Warfare in 2014. It was either that or the one afterwards. It was a big deal. Like, PlayStation got the marketing rights. They got the month map packs early at the time. And, like, I saw a big tectonic shift. There was Call of Duty YouTubers literally throwing their Xboxes in the bin because of, the marketing deal and all that stuff. And it was a big deal. And for the past 10 years almost, you've had PlayStation and Call of Duty associated with each other. That is pulling power. Like, Call of Duty, even if a lot of people played the Warzone thing now, Call of Duty still makes $1 billion every year. And Sony sees a lot of that. And Microsoft will be making a considerable amount of money if they get Call of Duty, but it's also more than that. They get things like Overwatch, World of Warcraft. By the way, World of Warcraft, I'm surprised Sony or the CMA haven't mentioned. That's clearly one of the biggest names in gaming, and it just hasn't been brought up. It's just Call of Duty that's brought up. It's a strange situation. We all want it to be over soon. Logan, have you got anything else on the topic before I move on?
Personally, I want the deal to go through. I think it should go through. I don't think on legal grounds there's a good reason to not go through. That being said, governing bodies are made of people, and people have different opinions or views on how things should go, or there's outside pressures on things. So, that being said, if it didn't go through, I think Microsoft scorched earth with a $70 billion bag of money to just go absolutely ham on would be a nightmare scenario, frankly, for Sony. Like, you spend a year plus trying to tank something that a company clearly feels is in their best interest. And everybody's like, oh, Microsoft or Activision and Sony will just go back to being buddy-buddy. I'm like, I don't think so. Have you been seeing what they've been posting and what Bobby Kotick and all these other execs have been saying about Sony since they've been trying to kill this deal? Like, I don't think it would be sunshine and roses for them if this deal falls through. Their relationship going forward. I mean, money's money, but relationships matter. So I really think that this will come back to royally bite them in one way or another, trying to sabotage this deal.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Maybe it's the amount of alcohol I've consumed in the past month. I don't know, but I just think, like, the fact that Sony getting, like, Final Fantasy VII Remake exclusive, like, shouldn't something like that be brought up? And, like, how, like, we don't get certain games, and sometimes outright. Sometimes Sony doesn't even have to do a deal, like Kingdom Hearts 4. We don't know the deal with that, and, like, games are just de facto exclusive to PlayStation. But that's just never brought up. And, Microsoft has to do all these things to secure that Call of Duty still goes over there. It's stupid in my opinion. And honestly, I don't understand why an American company has to get the nod of agreement from outside countries. That boggles my mind. Activision is a US company. Microsoft is a US company. And why should the UK, Europe, Brazil, any other country on earth have any say is beyond me. It makes no sense, honestly. Even though they are massive companies that sell product in every country on earth, I just don't get it. I do hope this though, when the deal goes through, I hope Microsoft doesn't go for another publisher, because clearly Sony's shown that you can buy studios left and right without anyone blinking. Because Sony bought, I think, 8 studios in the past year. Nobody mentioned a thing. They bought Bungie. Nobody mentioned a thing. So that's allowed, but buying a publisher isn't. So, yeah. That's just my thought on it. And, hopefully within the next few months it'll be over and we can never talk about this again, right? Anyway, we'll move on. Before I move on, we're about an hour into the show. If you're enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel. That Super Chat's alive if you want to donate and helping to the channel and all that stuff. Anyway, so Hi-Fi Rush gets announced stealthily. It released, shadow drops, and people love it. And honestly, so far, I'm loving the game. I think I'm about 2/3 way through the game. And anyway, so there's been an incredible amount of judgment against this game, calling it it's bad because it doesn't have real graphics. I've seen one clip go around. I've seen people say cell shading is bad, apparently, which is a dumb take in my opinion. And by the way, in the world of gaming, where these developers can make all these different worlds with different art styles, do we have to stick to the gritty, realistic approach for all games? That's what I don't get. These developers can make worlds look like pencil drawings or, anything. Any art style they want. But people just want to talk about gritty, realistic, third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure games starring a sad dad. Because let's face it, that's what they're talking about. But at the same time, there's been port bagging going on. People saying that they should put Hi-Fi Rush on the Switch. Bring it to PlayStation. And that just doesn't make any sense. The game's bad 1 minute, but the second it gets good review scores, it's port begs. So where am I going with this? People are port begging Microsoft exclusives constantly. Yet, if you see an Xbox fan online say they want this JRPG, a third-party JRPG, they get attacked online and get made fun of because they want a third-party game on their favorite device. Am I crazy, Logan? That is pretty. That's crazy, right? Because people are port beg. I've seen people port beg Halo to the Switch for years, by the way. It has happened, and now we've seen it with Hi-Fi Rush. Oh, it'd be perfect for the Switch. Cool. Wouldn't Mario be perfect for every device on the planet? Yeah, of course, but that's not how it works. Logan, what do you think? Because there's been a lot of port begging over this game.
Yeah, it's really funny how they throw dirt at the game about this or this or this, but as soon as it gets good scores or word of mouth takes off, then all of a sudden they want it, and then they get mad that they can't have it, and then they say, oh, it's toxic, or it's not fair that this platform can have it or the other. I'm like, don't you stand a platform that has literally made a 20-year history of doing this exact same thing? Buying a publisher before the PlayStation 1 even launched, they bought a publisher to get it rolling. And they've, bought, Naughty Dog was not an original PlayStation studio. They bought that one. All this other just nonsense. They bought these to make exclusives for their platform, or they drop a nice check under the rug to a studio or publisher to make a game exclusive for them. It's how the business works. And the fact that they do it and they don't bat an eye at it, but when another platform has the audacity to do the same thing to try to make their platform better, it's suddenly not okay, unacceptable. Get the regulators involved. This is just not fair and unright. It's laughable. It's ridiculous, and it makes everybody just look really just silly. And yeah, especially about some of these JRPG games and stuff. Like there's a certain one I've seen out there that has Xbox fans have been wanting for a long time, and had a Kickstarter and everything, and they said they were coming to all
Yep,
platforms.
that's all this.
Yet, yet, Xbox is not mentioned at all. And then people ask it, and they won't say the console's name, almost like saying it like Harry Potter, basically. It's like they won't say the platform name, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? What is with this? You say it's coming to all platforms, then when people say Xbox, they're like, well, we don't have anything to actually say about that, or oh, wait further information, yada yada. I mean, okay, if Sony or Nintendo is like holding you to where it's like legally you're not allowed to say this because of a deal or something, I get it. But if it's not that and it's something else, it's just really weird and it ticks off fans and it's not a good vibe.
Yeah, I mean, like, it is weird. Like, people have said for years, Xbox has no games, and that's been a meme for years now. And, Microsoft, over time, they buy some studios. They start making more games. And just when they start getting out, like, exclusives, quote-unquote bangers, and I hate that term, people all of a sudden start saying, oh, well, shouldn't it go to other platforms just to be nice? And that blows my mind. The hypocrites, let's face it. I've seen articles that made in the past week saying, is Starfield coming to PlayStation? Is Uncharted 5 going to be on Xbox? No, we aren't going to say that bloody article because we know it shouldn't bloody exist. And it's stupid. It's going on. And here's the sad thing. Microsoft has said time and time again, like, these are first-party games, they're going to be exclusive. But no matter how many times they say it, no matter how many games they come out with, everyone's going to be questioning every single time. Every single time. And like you're saying, that Japanese, I think it's a JRPG game developer, I won't mention the game because I don't want them to be attacked, but like the fact that they said all platforms in their Kickstarter, and then people start asking them, where's Xbox? It's not listed. That's a platform. And just the way they've gone about it, some other publishers have done the same thing. Square Enix has done this once or twice with some of their titles. Oh, it's coming to all platforms. And literally, you have PlayStation, Nintendo, iOS, Android, Steam, Epic, your grandmother's microwave, everything on Earth, the Samsung fridge, but not Xbox. And it's getting to a point now where it's really annoying people. So you have one lot of people port begging Xbox first-party games. You have another lot of people gloating over getting these exclusives that are just de facto exclusive. And then you have these publishers saying, this game's coming to all platforms, but not including Xbox. And it's like all over the place. Like, no wonder people can be so frustrated in the gaming space because, like, nobody knows what's going on. Yet you have hypocrites going around port begging for Microsoft exclusives. Like, it's mind-boggling. And, that game we were talking about where they said all platforms and not Xbox, that is it's kind of lying, isn't it? Like, if you do a Kickstarter and you say all platforms, but when Xbox is mentioned, you pretend that it's like not included. Like, it's very shady. It's very shady, and who knows how many people supported that Kickstarter thinking they're going to get an Xbox copy. Like, and by the way, some of these smaller developers, they use the worst excuses online. They said that they're just a small company and they don't have a lot of resources, and that's cool, right? If a small developer has no resources to, like, market or develop alternate versions, that's cool. That's their prerogative and whatever. But, like, shouldn't they announce certain platforms when you're raising money for a game? Like, it was very shady. And by the way, other games have done similar things about, like, lying and stuff. Like, have you heard about the controversy with this game called The Day Before?
I isn't that like another like blue box type
Yeah,
scenario?
yeah. So there's
Okay, yeah, that's all I thought.
this game that was announced like 2 years ago called The Day Before. Even I posted gifs about it. I was like, this game looks cool before I actually looked into it. And this developer was posting all this footage of this game that looked mind blowing. It looked like the Walking Dead game people have always dreamed of, right? This online MMO zombie survival game. And people like, is it real? Because the movement of the characters kind of looked fake. It looked like, it looked pre-rendered basically. It looked too good to be true. And then they announced a release date, and then like delayed the game like a week before launch, 6 months. Said that they're having problems with getting the trademark for the name and all this stuff, and people found out that's a lie. And then as all of this is boiling up and bubbling up, due to pressure, they put out a 10-minute segment of gameplay where, I kid you not, it looks like they whipped it up in a week. Right? They've used assets from store packs in Unreal Engine, and it looks like they've, subdued the pressure and made this thing in a week because it looks terrible. It looks like a mobile phone game from 2015. And people are wondering, like, is it a real game still? And like the team, it literally came out on Twitter, said like, oh, we haven't been speaking about the game because we have no marketing department. We have no money. It's like, it's free to tweet, and it's like, just that's a different kettle of fish for another day. But like, some publishers and developers do some shady things. Most don't. Most are cool people run by awesome people, but like, there's shady things that happen. But yeah, that's a story for another day. But yeah, where am I going with this? Xbox not being included in things. That was a bit of a tangent. Like, I think it would be okay for these things to happen if they actually announced like what devices are going on. Like, you can't say all platforms. That really bothered me, by the way. It's coming to all platforms, and the second someone says, "Oh, I'm going to get it on Xbox," they said, "Actually, it's not going to be on Xbox." It's insulting. You're expecting people to be stupid. That's what they're doing. And the whole port begging thing, I just think it's silly. Like, Hi-Fi Rush gets announced, and you can see live reactions of people saying it looks bad. And the second it gets a good Metacritic score, and people are saying it's one of the best games of the year, and it's going to win Game of the Year and all this stuff, bloody hypocrites. Hypocrites. These people didn't like the look of a game until they saw a shiny number on Metacritic. That blows my mind. It honestly does. Anyway, we'll move on because that's me ranting about random crap for 10 minutes. Logan, have you got anything else to say on Hi-Fi Rush before I move on?
Oh, just that. I absolutely love it. It's currently my front runner for Game of the Year. Just incredible. Just, it felt in the best way like something from the Dreamcast, Xbox, GameCube, PS2 era. Just so creative and out there and full of life, fun characters. I 100% want merchandise for the game. Get a physical steelbook and soundtrack and an 808 plush, t-shirts, you name it. Get an anime series or film. Make the characters into a brawler or a racer. Just they have to go further with this franchise. Like, make this a marquee franchise. It is that good.
Yeah, I mean, I put it like this: when they stealth dropped it, this game that had 1 hour of marketing, my entire feed was filled with 808 gifs, screenshots, all that type of thing. Like, people loved that robot cat, and that's all I saw for about a week. But I'm right. I think you're right. They need to like make merchandise. I would love to buy a chai like figurine type thing. And by the way, I don't know why Microsoft doesn't capitalize on that merchandise side. Like, about 2 years ago or so, they opened the Xbox Gear Shop where you can buy things like t-shirts, hats, that type of thing. But like, I have no idea why they don't manufacture figurines and statues. Like, even the resin ones you get with collector's editions, they're fairly cheap to make. I think Sony might do some like statue type things outside of collector's editions, but like, Nintendo definitely capitalizes on that. That if you want to buy any product with Mario on it or Mario like figurine, you can. that you don't even have to look. You want to buy something Pokemon related, you can buy anything on Earth Pokemon related. But Microsoft, like, people would like to buy merchandise, like figurines. Seriously, I want to buy your 808 and Chai figurine, but
100%.
yeah, it just seems like it would be such an easy way to make money. Merchandise. I've mentioned it before. Like, I would love to buy like Gears of War figurines outside of the ones that came out 15 years ago that look horrible. But that's a story for another day. While we're talking about Hi-Fi Rush, people discovered that there's an Easter egg in the game, and you brought this to my attention, Logan. It's there's a line of text on one of the monitors in Hi-Fi Rush that alludes to a upcoming sequel in a popular horror franchise. Now, it's Tango, and as far as I'm aware, no other developer at Microsoft makes horror games. So the only game they could be talking about is The Evil Within 3. Logan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the only other horror game in development at Microsoft is Project Mara, which is that experimental tech, really, really super fascinating title by Ninja Theory. But as far as franchises, yeah, like Evil Within is it. And, made by Shinji Mikami, the father of Resident Evil, like, made Resident Evil 4, like, iconic developer. His love child franchise of his own that's not owned by Capcom. It's critically underrated. It's very, very awesome, wonderful, fascinating world. Super dark and gritty and just really disturbing, frankly. But it's really, really good. And people have been craving a third one. And so the fact that they drop a teaser in there and little text like that really got people's attention. And frankly, to me, if it was just that and that alone, I would be, okay, I'm excited and that's cool, but it could just be a fun little nod. But the fact that they have that on top of, they've literally like ported over characters from the Evil Within into the game itself, where you have Sebastian Castellanos and one of his partners, I can't remember his name, as instead of detectives, they work for HR. And they appear throughout the game. You can find them. And they talk very much like they did in Evil Within, like very noir and kind of just like, oh, this is all dark and just like, we're against the grain of the system and we're just doing this and that and it's all hopeless, or we just gotta, dust ourselves off and get out and get it done. And just there's that. There's the little snail that appears throughout the game, and in the museum level in particular, there is an Easter egg. If you go into a certain back area and go down, you can find one of the mirrors from the Evil Within, and it plays the piano keys of one of the songs from the Evil Within, and then the snail teleports through the mirror. So there is a lot of Evil Within teases. So I really do think this is something.
Yeah, I mean, like, games do get Easter eggs all the time. If you like Assassin's Creed, you're guaranteed to get an Easter egg. That doesn't mean you're going to get a game. I'm looking at you, Splinter Cell. But it does seem a bit on the nose. Like, it does seem like that could be something, because, like, if you think about it like this, in March 2022, they released Ghostwire Tokyo. They've had a smaller team making Hi-Fi Rush for 4 years. So it would kind of seem like they've had another team obviously porting over Ghostwire Tokyo to Xbox Series X and S, which we'll hear about next month. Like, it would seem that they would have another team making a new game. And it would seem like it would be a sure bet, especially considering horror games lately are getting a lot of love. The Callisto Protocol, granted that needed to make a lot more money just because, it's graphics and all that stuff, but like the Callisto Protocol, you have the Dead Space remake, Resident Evil 4 remake is going to sell a crap ton. You have the Alone in the Dark remake, a lot of remakes by the way. Oh yeah, and Silent Hill remake, a lot of horror games, and I think an Evil Within 3 would do really well, especially right now. Like, remember 10 years ago, we weren't really getting horror games. Like, AAA horror games weren't really much of a thing. If you were like Outlast, that was pretty much it. But I think the Evil Within 3 would be kind of perfect for Microsoft right now because they don't have a horror exclusive, game that's new. And I don't know, I think a lot of people would want that. Plus, the Evil Within, that's a pretty big franchise, am I right?
Yeah, it did well. I mean, it didn't set the world on fire like Resident Evil or anything, but it people have quite enjoyed it, and the second one built upon the ideas of the first one. It added a lot of crafting and stuff, which some weren't a fan of, but it definitely took the universe in a way to where you could definitely expand it further, and it has really good characters that I think people want to see again.
Yeah, I mean, uh, so putting that all together, I think it'll happen. I think it's just an inevitability. I think we might not see it for like maybe 2 or 3 years. Um, Hell, even if they made another game with similar graphics to the last game, I think a lot of people would be happy because that's still a gorgeous game. Put a game out like that, 60 frames, high resolution textures, new story, obviously, new area. Yeah, I think Microsoft might be teasing. Plus, I think like when you look at all the new titles coming to Game Pass, we don't really see many horror games. So, maybe that'll do well. And while we're talking about Xbox exclusives, you notified me just before the show, Logan. Spy Team, a new Bethesda game which has been in development for a few years, which is yet to be announced. What do you know about this? Because I've heard rumblings of it, but that's pretty much it.
Basically, from the stuff that's been floating around, it's a spy focused, like multiplayer type game from one of the Bethesda studios, and it's had its trademark recently renewed. And they had filed the trademark a while back, and then they recently renewed it. So they're keeping it active. And there's been subtle teases about it. And, we still haven't seen what Roundhouse is working on, or Alpha Dog, or some of the other Bethesda studios that came over in the deal. So, potentially Spy Team is one of the games those guys are working on.
Yeah, I think given how Hi-Fi Rush was announced, like we just don't know what's going to happen anymore. Like I don't think they're going to start like stealth dropping games every show, but I do think the time from announcing a game to releasing it is going to be a lot less than we've seen in the past. Because look, Fable announced a few years in advance. Perfect Dark, a few years in advance. Indiana Jones, definitely a few years in advance. I think maybe people are just getting sick of the whole announcing a game and waiting for years thing. I prefer games to be announced the same year they release, honestly. So, like, while I do know, I like to know about the games coming in the future. Like, I think it is getting to a point where people are sick of these games being overly analyzed and knowing the ins and outs of a game before they release. So maybe that'll be the case. If it is a multiplayer thing, I think they'll have to be careful about how they market it because, again, we've spoke about how multiplayer games are received. If they aren't the big boys, who knows? Maybe we'll hear about that thing at Microsoft's Summer Showcase. Like they've got a lot to talk about. Like Hellblade 2 is rumored to be coming out later this year, and honestly, I think it's been long enough now with the offices being open again in the UK. Yeah, I think we'll hear about these games this year. But that Spy Team thing, I mean, who knows? Who knows? We could be getting another developer direct before the Starfield one. We don't know yet. And then let's talk about Starfield. That game is rumored to come out in June. Like, I assume you've seen the leak, Logan.
Yeah, June seems like a good bet, especially big Hollywood blockbuster. Todd Howard is seen as a visionary. This is kind of like Xbox's potential Star Wars, so to speak. Like this could be really, really massive. They're building all the hype and release it like a old school summer blockbuster film or game. In June seems like a good fit to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when it comes to like Microsoft releasing games, especially like Starfield. Let's face it, Starfield's going to be their biggest game of the year. Like Hellblade, in my opinion, will probably be the most like gorgeous looking game of the year. But Starfield is the big one. You know, Elder Scrolls, Fallout are these tentpole releases, which let's face it, they are industry events where people like take time off to play these games and no life them over a week. Starfield's going to be like that. It's going to be that style of RPG, and they have to be careful because they have to announce this game, market in advance, and like we are going to talk about the whole Game Pass thing. Like Microsoft does want games to sell well. They don't want 100% of their players to be through Game Pass. That's why they still put adverts on TV for boxed copies. Like that's just how it is, or digital copies. And Starfield's going to be a game that generates millions of sales, and it's going to be a console seller. Like that is the case. Although some people don't like to be told that. But yeah, I think this year is going to be very it's going to be varied for Xbox, because look at the games that's announced or say released already. We had Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition released in January. We have Hi-Fi Rush, which released in January. Two critically acclaimed games. We're getting Redfall in May. Forza Motorsport may not be that far out, although I think we do need a release date soon. And Starfield's rumored to be, June. Hellblade 2 is meant to be later this year. So I think it's going to be a really good year for Xbox, which is kind of funny because at the Game Awards in December last year, people were complaining that Microsoft announced nothing. And then so far, it looks like 2023 is going to be a good year. So there's all that. And, we might as well get into the whole sales thing, unless you've got anything else to say on Starfield, Logan.
No, just that I think Starfield and Hellblade 2 are just going to be absolutely just magnificent games. I'm super excited for them and Redfall 2, but as well, but I don't know. I've been waiting for Hellblade 2 for a long time and Starfield for even longer. So, just can't wait to get my hands on those.
Yeah, I mean, the Hellblade thing, like, as soon as people saw that game, it's, the Game Awards 2019, people thought it wasn't real. It looked too good. And then when we see gameplay in the Game Awards 2021, it looked better. There was more detail, all that stuff. And I think, Ninja Theory, they've proven they can do a lot with Unreal Engine. A lot of Microsoft game studios are working on Unreal Engine 5 at the minute. Hell, even the Outer Worlds 2's Unreal Engine. But yeah, I think it's going to be a big year, especially for Ninja Theory. And you mentioned earlier in the show, they have Project Mara. That's a psychological horror game, which we've only seen screenshots of a stairway. So, I mean, this year could have a lot of surprises. And Microsoft, they seem to be hyping up this year a lot, so who knows? And screw it, let's go straight into the whole box copy scenario. So, Hi-Fi Rush gets stealth announced and launched an hour later in... Was it late January, Logan? The developer direct?
I think it was the 18th. Don't quote me, but I think it was around that time. I mean, it feels like so much news has happened since then, but I think it was the 18th, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so it gets announced with an hour of marketing. It becomes one of the best sellers on Steam. It outsold a AAA release that cost $70, which is a big deal with 1 hour of marketing. And there's been some talk about why it didn't appear in the MPD. Now, bear in mind, it didn't get a physical release. At all. And to be honest, if it got a physical release, I would have bought it. I would have liked to have that on my shelf with its cool artwork. Please, Microsoft, release a collector's edition. So anyway, I think, people are bringing up the NPD group and like, why isn't it in there? And it's like, they knew going in, launching this smaller game. Because bear in mind, if a game isn't realistic now, people tend to just lose it. But the fact that it got good reviews, it has an amazing soundtrack. The voice acting is really good in this game, by the way. And it's just overall a good game. And Game Pass is a big factor into people playing it. Like, look, I think people still buy games outside of Game Pass. The numbers are there. And here's the thing. If you go to the store right now, Hogwarts Legacy is number 1. Dead Space was at number 1 when it came out, although I think it's like number 5 now in the UK. You know, Age of Empires, RTS on console, reached number 5 in the UK, right? And on top paid games. And that's a very niche game, by the way. Age of Empires. Got number 5. And people are bringing up boxed copies in the UK to use as ammo. Now, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because like I live in a city where we haven't had a video game store in 10 years. So the only way you can buy games physically is if you order them off game.com, which the overpriced stuff, or Amazon. So a lot of people just download games digitally. Like, I prefer the physical disc with the case, but I buy most of my games now digitally. Because I may as well. There's the convenience factor there. And I think, like, Logan, like, there's been this discourse going on for the past few years, and specifically the past 2 years, that, like, bringing up UK boxed copies, despite the fact that, like, even Jez said on Twitter, like, where he used to live, there was no no game store in his city, and it's like a lot of places in the UK don't have game stores. It's a bit crazy that the boxed copies thing in the UK keeps getting brought up, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when you look at Xbox statistics and stuff, and like the vast majority of games, I believe, are sold actually digitally for Xbox users, which it compared to some other consoles might be different, but it's just there seems to be a clear shift towards digital, and I personally like physical, and like if I can get a physical copy that comes with some extra loot or something like a soundtrack or a steelbook, I'll get it. But I have been transitioning towards more digital, like especially in this era of cloud, to where I want to make sure I can be able to play a game I own wherever I go. And if I own it digitally, then I should be able to easily stream it or play it via cloud on the go. And to me, it just makes more sense to do that. And they should, if they want to be a sales watcher snob type person, at least, look at it in totality, like digital and physical or digital only or whatever, and like categorize it, because especially when you take into account this game never even had a physical copy, so how on earth would it show up on a physical sales chart? You can't go, LOL, Forspoken sold this much, and see, everybody was wrong, and then Hi-Fi Rush didn't even chart. It's like, yes, you genius, it doesn't even have a physical edition. What are you thinking here? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, they keep bringing up the UK box sales thing, but like, for people that aren't from the US, and according to my stats, 90% of the people listening aren't from the UK. So in the UK, we had a major game retailer called Game. They were basically our equivalent of GameStop, and they were the biggest one. And then there was another company called Game Station, but Game Station also sold things like game guides, action figures, t-shirts, but Game mainly sold video games and, consoles and used games. Well, in like 2012 or 2013, Game bought Game Station. And this is how they almost crippled the entire business. In most cities, Game Station and Game usually aren't that far apart. So what they did was they turned most of the Game Stations into games, right? So they basically cannibalized their own business. And about a year later, 50% of stores in the UK got shut down. So most cities don't have game stores at all. So you either have to use game.com or Amazon. In supermarkets, by the way, Tesco and Asda in the UK, I think, those ones, they do not include those sales in the UK, charts. So that's all over the place. And by the way, I know it's starting to happen in the US, that in the UK since 2013, If you search a game on Amazon, you are recommended PlayStation games. You cannot see Xbox games unless you click on the game and then select the version. Like, has that happened in the US yet, Logan?
Oh, 100%. It's really irritating, especially if I'm looking for like a collector's edition or something, and then it's like, okay, it pops up, but it's PlayStation, and it's like, oh, they got it in stock, okay. And then you look for Xbox, it's like, oh no, they didn't make a collector's edition for it, or oh, it's out of stock for that one, and it's a buzzkill how they do that.
Yeah, and it's been happening in the UK since about 2012 or 13. And I highly recommend people now, if you're listening on television or whatever, open up Amazon.com and search, let's say, Hogwarts Legacy. You'll be recommended the PlayStation version. And you scroll down, the Xbox version isn't even shown. And it's been like that over here since 2012/13, right? And it's annoying. So do you know what people do? They go onto their console and buy it there. Because that's what I've been doing. I hate the fact that I go to Amazon and I'm just showing PlayStation games. It doesn't even make any sense. That should technically be illegal. A store showing you a very specific version, and it's been going on for a decade now. A decade. And people in Australia have noticed this with Amazon. People in Spain, France, Germany have all noticed this. And let's say Diablo 4, when that comes out in June, right? You search Diablo 4, you are only shown the PlayStation version. So you click on it, and then you see the option to click on Xbox. People are annoyed at this. I'm annoyed, and it's been a decade, and now it's happening in more countries. It's happening more and more in the US, and I don't know how this is allowed on Amazon. It shouldn't be allowed, because technically, isn't that anti-competition? It's been going on for a decade. It's bloody annoying. I'd be interested in chat. Has anyone else noted this from other countries? Because it's, again, a decade in the UK. It's bloody annoying. Bringing up UK boxed sales doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because, again, nobody buys the games physically in the UK because there's not really much point. And, we're going to see this continue to be brought up because, like, Hogwarts Legacy is selling like hotcakes. And someone brought up, and by the way, they didn't actually bring up a source. They said 18% of copies are on Xbox. No source, just a random dude on Twitter with the convenient numbers, to be exact. And yeah, it's unfair. Again, that whole Amazon thing annoys a lot of people. People I know in real life that have always been physical only have moved to digital just because of the whole Amazon thing. It's annoying. And as someone that is still holding out hope for getting game manuals for a physical copy, I don't like going on Amazon because the experience is crap. Like, okay, I was gonna buy Hogwarts Legacy physically, and you aren't showing the Xbox version, and that's stupid. Again, been going on for a decade. It should be brought up to the FTC or CMA or whatever you want to call them because it's just not fair. The user experience of an Xbox gamer in the UK and other countries is that you have to buy digitally. Because, let's face it, that's kind of your only option at this point, unless you want to click through a bunch of different things. It's stupid. It really is. Anyway, we'll move on. The Coalition, over the past month or so, we've heard that 2 games in development have been cancelled. One of which was a small title, the other of which was a bigger title, and apparently all hands on deck for Gears 6. Now, my stance on it is that I think the Coalition could make some excellent games that aren't just Gears. Like, I think Gears 6 is going to be incredible, what they can do with Unreal Engine. They pretty much mastered Unreal Engine 4 on Xbox One and what they could get out of that hardware at the time. And now, I hear this news and I'm like, I'm of two minds. I'm going to get more Gears sooner. And Gears 6 is probably about 2 years away. 3 years away at best, because they've had people working on it. But, like, the problem is when you have games being made by studios, sometimes they just get axed because they aren't good. Sometimes they have a game jam, have an idea, and then when production goes into it, it turns out people probably wouldn't like it. They do focus testing early on in games. It's like, look at Hi-Fi Rush. We never heard about this game, but they've probably been focus testing this game for the past year and a half. And it just happens. And while I would like to see the Coalition tackle a new IP, Although I do want them to make a StarCraft third-person shooter. I think that would be incredible. Yeah, so they've cancelled 2 games and all hands on deck for Gears 6. What are your thoughts, Logan? Because it is disappointing, but at the same time, I kind of understand it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer to hear a project gets canceled, but unless it's like an official announced game that then gets officially canceled, it's like you don't really have a lot of information on it. You don't know how far along it was, or how big of an idea, or if it was like just a side project, or this is going to be a main title, or how many people were working on it, and if it was just like, okay, we need budget for something else, or frankly, this project idea just kind of sucks after all, so we're just going to quietly shut it down. I mean, there's all kinds of things that go into it, and I kind of feel like we in a society as a general have kind of just become so info obsessed, where we just have to know more and more and more about all these things, to where people leak stuff and tease stuff way, way in advance that ends up not happening. And then people get really mad, and it builds reputations for some of these studios or companies for always dropping the ball or never getting anything done. When, is it dropping the ball and never getting anything done and released that if it was never actually announced to begin with? Like, is it really a failing that, okay, I mean, it's one thing if StarCraft Ghost, for example, that was announced, that had hype cycles, magazines, demos, was awesome. That one got canceled. And publicly, officially, it's dead. People were really, really ticked about it and disappointed. I'm still disappointed about it to this day. I want that game. So, to me, that's different than the coalition had a couple other projects in the works, and they decided to shelve those and focus solely on Gear 6. To me, it's not the same, but I don't know. That's just me. I'm excited for Gear 6. I love Gears. Personally, I think, especially while Halo is in a little bit of a not wonderful situation, they should lean more into Gears, frankly, right now. And just push it more front and center and go all in. And with the show and the animated thing coming for it, go all in on Gears. And now, if the coalition wants to revisit other ideas, then cool. But I'm stoked for Gear 6, and I trust the coalition. They haven't made a game I haven't liked.
Yeah, I mean, I've liked pretty much everything they've made so far. I've never really been into Gears multiplayer. That whole wall bouncing thing, that isn't for me. Although I understand why it's popular. Although I did enjoy Gears 2 multiplayer for some reason. But Gears of War, like, I think Microsoft need to make it as like one of their main IPs again, because Gears of War was massive back in the day, and it can be again. I think the way 5 ended with the multiple options type thing, maybe they need to pick a certain ending and just go with it. But outside of that, I think Gears is in good hands. But man, like, remember when the Coalition was first announced? It wasn't actually called the Coalition. It was called Black Tusk Studio, and they were making a third-person stealth game called Shanghai Nights, I think. Shanghaiist, and that game looked really cool. It was a stealth kind of Splinter Cell style game. Now, bear in mind, that game does occur to me maybe once a month, and I reminisce and what it could be because I like Splinter Cell. But that's never going to happen. Maybe it didn't play good, and that's just another one of those games. And here's the thing: you will see people make clickbait and get angry about cancelled Coalition game. Should the Coalition close down ? But how can people be angry about a game we haven't seen? Like you said, StarCraft Ghost. I remember reading about that in official Xbox magazine back in the day, and I was so excited about it because it looked really cool from the screenshots. And to this day, People are still salty that it got cancelled, but we knew about that. We just know that these projects existed, I'm doing air quotes, and now they're nothing. This is like how games get delayed internally and people get angry, even though we have no release date, you know? It's just another
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like, I remember Star Wars Jedi Survivor was apparently delayed internally, and I saw people get angry online. It's like, we never had a release date. We had like a 4-second long CGI trailer with no date or no window, and people got angry. It's like, you can't be angry over not knowing something, you know? And the same thing we've seen with Starfield. It got delayed to 2023, and now I'm seeing people online freak out saying, what if it gets delayed again to November? But they've not really said when they, releasing it. It could still release in June, but people have been angry that it's not releasing in February or March or May, or April. But it is what it is. We're going to see this all the time. I have to answer this. Blue on the chat said, how can people even buy that? Isn't it illegal? Look, Amazon have been doing this for a decade, right? People have mentioned it, brought it up. Again, it's happening in Australia, Spain, Germany, France. It's happening in other territories. It's starting to happen in the US. I've seen people post that if you search a game on Amazon, you are just shown PlayStation games. It should not be legal. It's been going on for a decade, and the fact that no one's looked into it, there's a problem. Amazon is I put it like this: Amazon is the number one retailer of video games physically in the UK. A bloody website, and all you're showing is PlayStation games. Like, it makes no sense. Anyway, but I'll whine about that next week maybe. But yeah, the Coalition 2 games got cancelled. All hands on deck for Gears. I know Nick from Xbox Era has said that he does think that the Gears Ultimate Edition for 2 or the collection is happening. I think it's happening as well, simply because they have enough studios to work on that stuff. There are studios that make ports of games. And frankly, it doesn't actually upset anyone, because you can still buy Gears 2 and play Gears 2, and you can also play it in 4K 60 FPS, free upgraded, but you'll also have the option to buy, the remake, so to speak. So everyone wins in that scenario, which is all good. And plus, Gears of War 2 is one of my favourite games of all time. I would love that to get the Ultimate Edition treatment. And plus, I honestly think it'll sell. Like you mentioned before in a previous episode, Logan, that they're going to be coming out with like a TV show, an animated show, and a movie. Like, it would make sense to get the ball rolling, since Gears 6 is years away, to get out a collection, especially since they've already done the first game. They just have a few more games to go, correct?
Yeah, and especially, like, this isn't PlayStation focused, but you've seen how The Last of Us, remake has been selling like gangbusters since the show has been on HBO and been doing well, and it's brought even more interest to that IP. It just makes sense to have, cohesion between your games and your outside intellectual avenues of revenue. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look at Cyberpunk, right? Cyberpunk was kicked on for years, and then they fixed the game in February 2022, and I played it, and they fixed it. It works. Beautiful game. I highly recommend people play Cyberpunk 2077, but there was no really positive talk about Cyberpunk until they dropped the anime on Netflix. And then Cyberpunk became one of the best-selling games on Steam that month, and on Xbox, and I think on PlayStation as well. It's like 20 million copies or something now, of an anime that's set before like the game starts. But like, doing multimedia stuff, I think, works like that. You have the show and then the game. It works. It clearly works. Cyberpunk got a boost. The Last of Us game clearly got a boost because of the show coming out. The show probably got a boost off more fans playing the game. It just works, and I think it'll happen. And plus, I think it'll be a good way to satisfy Gears fans until we see a Gears 6 in 2 to 3 years. And plus, they could put all the multiplayer maps and all the horde stuff in, one place, like MCC. 13 Carry One Production said, why not like a series like the Halo TV series? Like, I can't say anything about the Halo show because I haven't seen it yet. I am not getting I'm not getting Paramount Plus for one TV show. That ain't happening. I might just buy the Blu-ray at some point. Actually, Logan, what do you think of the Halo TV show?
I seem to be in the minority, but I liked it. But having said that, like, if you were somebody who is like hardcore about the lore and it has to be by the book, like a straight adaptation of established things in the Halo universe, you probably will not like it. I'm a diehard lore guy. I got the Halopedias, the red books and games, have the anime, the films. I'm all about Halo and all the lore, all that. But then I went into this with an open mind, saying like, okay, they've made a separate timeline. This is non-canon to the game universe and all those. This is separate. So I'll go in there with a fresh mind and see what they do. They have done a few things that I thought were kind of weird, and I'm like, okay, I wouldn't have done that. But there has been also some things in there that I'm like, huh, I like that. They fleshed this out more, made this more human. I like this character. I like they're exploring the rebellions and the insurgency and just showing how gritty and just terrifying these aliens are. And the religious aspects of the covenant, like diving into that some more. And just, there has been some good things in it, and then there has been some, like, what are you doing stuff. But overall, I'm looking forward to season 2 personally, and I really hope it takes off.
Yeah, I mean, I was just searching on Amazon to see if I can buy it. I'm surprised they didn't show me the PlayStation version. You can buy the Halo TV show on Amazon now. It's £42 for the 4K Blu-ray. Tempted. I might get it.
I got the Steelbook. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I love Halo. I want to see more. And it is getting a season 2. Who knows? Like, maybe season 2 will be more faithful or whatever. And I know this is a bit of a tangent. Like The Witcher 3, I'll say the Witcher TV show apparently deviates a lot from the resource material because season 2 was all over the place. But they might fix that as well. Yeah, we're talking about Gears. I think they'll do the whole like marketing a game or the TV show thing because plus you said there's an animated show coming out. Netflix have proven they can make really good animated shows with game IP. So, Castlevania, if anyone hasn't watched it on Netflix, bloody amazing, no pun intended. And, even the Dragon Age show, pretty good. That's it for today's show. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we leave?
No, just, I'm looking forward to this ABK nonsense ending hopefully soon. And this is shaping up to be an awesome gaming year.
Yeah, I mean, 2023 is going to be bloody amazing. But yeah, we'll be back the same time next week. Everyone in chat, by the way, has been amazing. We haven't had a single porn bot, which is quite the accomplishment. I think we've had over 40 episodes or 50 episodes by now, and this is the second show without porn bots. I don't know if they're aware because it's Valentine's Day or something, but hey, it's a win. Everyone wins. Chat's been awesome. Everyone in Awesome's been chat. And yeah, we'll be back the same time next week. And next week we'll be talking about Atomic Heart because it'll have already released and I've played it. So yeah, and that's also coming to Game Pass next week as well. Anyway, again, everyone in chat's been awesome. We'll be back same time next week. I'll be posting a link to my last video, which is about Hogwarts Legacy, in the description down below. Anyway, we are out. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Peace. Okay, and we are done.